Hi, everybody. Mitch Tannenbaum here. Thanks for joining me today for this week's Security News Update. First item under security and privacy alerts. This is just part of the AI world, and it's not, well, it's a bad thing if it happens to you, but we're going to see a lot of this over the next couple of years as people, move very, very quickly trying to figure out how to do AI. So Lenovo has a website, and on the website, like a lot of them, there's a chat bot. And the chat bot is very friendly. What it can do is it can create and download scripts and run them on your computer. Well, after all, Lenovo, which is basically an arm of the Chinese government, is writing scripts, downloading them to your computer, and running them. Kind of what could possibly go wrong there, right? Well, obviously a lot of stuff. So, and your employees are just using this stuff because, and they don't know any better, and there's nothing that's stopping them from doing that. So that's an interesting challenge. We're going to see more of this, and I think it's going to become a bigger and bigger problem over time. An active duty soldier is the ultimate insider threat, unfortunately. Um, Taylor Adam Lee, 22, of El Paso, was arrested on charges of attempted transmission of national defense information to a foreign adversary, namely Russia. He tried to sell information about the M1A2 Abrams tank to somebody he thought was a Russian agent. Turns out it was an FBI agent, and that didn't turn out so well for him. So he's now in the clink. In the CMMC world, FedRAMP. FedRAMP is the process where cloud service providers can get certified or uh, prove that they're complying with FedRAMP in order to be usable by CMMC folks. Well, the government is working on revamping FedRAMP to make it easier, and that's a good thing. So there is this process going on right now called FedRAMP 20X. 20X is, I guess, because they don't think it's going to happen in 2025. They don't know if it's going to happen in 2026. They don't know when. So there are people that are posting on the FedRAMP marketplace that they are in different stages of compliance with FedRAMP 20X, which is wonderful but irrelevant. Do not get fooled into thinking that a vendor who is FedRAMP 20X compliant is going to help you pass your CMMC certification, because in fact, you will fail. If you have questions about that, please reach out to us, of course. When you go to Google or you go to your favorite chat bot like ChatGPT or Claude, and you ask it a question, it gives you an answer. It goes off and does whatever it does behind the scenes to figure that out. It gives you an answer, and you're not going to go to the website anymore. Even if they embed a URL in the answer, the odds of you clicking it are about literally 1%. So what they're saying is that depending on what you're talking about, website search traffic, that is to say, traffic generated as a result of you going into one of the search engines and putting in a search query and saying go look, is down somewhere between 15 and 64%, depending on the situation. So fundamentally, if you are counting on people going to your website for you to generate business, you are in big trouble. Yeah, and you better figure out something else, because that's just not going to work anymore. Again, on top of that, the AIs are only looking at the top, 4, 5, 6 websites that come up with its conclusion. So if you're not like at the very top of the list, you're not even factored into the equation. And then to make matters even worse, if you are in a search engine that does that, everything that is below the answer proposed by the AI in the search engine is scrolled down. Now, even if you do, quote, rank highly in the search engine, whatever that means, you still may be on the second page because the AI is taking up a goodly chunk of the real estate on the first page. So for those of you who are counting on search engines generating traffic, I think you got a problem. And the important issues, sorry, important issues and patches department. DoD's counterintelligence agency called DCSA puts out a newsletter pretty regularly. And in this newsletter, they're talking about insider threat, and they just go multiple different insider threat scenarios that they have caught. Now, this obviously doesn't, talk about the ones they haven't caught yet, but it does talk about the ones they have caught, and there's a fair number of them. So, if you think insider threat happens to somebody else, well, it may happen to somebody else. That's certainly possible, but it also may happen to you. Commvault is back at the patching game again. They patched a couple months ago. Now they're back patching again. Uh, these bugs affect the web server part, command center, and in some cases the core ComServe engine. So it's a big issue. And the legislative legal department, Connecticut, which is always dinking with its data privacy law, has updated the law one more time. This time, it's giving significant protections for kids because the federal law is a joke. So you can go to our security and privacy law page and learn about that. The U.S. Director of National Intelligence claims that the UK has dropped its demand for Apple to put a backdoor in its encryption. Apple hasn't said anything about it, and neither has the UK. So all we have is their word that they've done that, which, is a politician saying something. And I'm sure because the politician says something, it is truthful. But if it is truthful, that's a good thing for Apple and Apple users. But, I would say at this point, I would not count on the answer. And it may well be that in exchange for them dropping the demand, we offered the services of the NSA to help them break in places where they need to break in. The SIM swapper guy and a member of Scattered Spider, one of the hacking groups, is a Florida man. He was arrested and prosecuted. He's now going to serve 10 years in a federal prison. And he's also ordered to pay $13 million in compensation. Um, so that's good, but one out of 1,000. What can I say? A congressperson has proposed to bring back the letters of Marque. That's something from I guess, the Revolutionary War days, certainly before the Civil War, where the government could issue you a license to be basically a bounty hunter, and if you caught something, you got to keep it. And what this guy wants, the letters of Marque, which is still a law, to do is you let you go after the hackers. Now, that's an interesting philosophy. Obviously, the country in which the hacker lives may not be fond of you. The country, if you manage to do some damage in some foreign country, they may come after you. I don't know that it's necessarily a super clean thing to do, but it's certainly an interesting strategy. Under the breaches category, HR giant Workday got hit by a cyber breach. One more time, this is from a third party. No big surprise. Likely SAP or one of those kind of players, Salesforce maybe. And the good news is the information they got is not the most sensitive. If you think about the kind of stuff that you might have in an HR system, the most sensitive stuff was not compromised. At least that's what they're claiming. AI is not a threat to the board, but bad AI governance is. Boards and Directors magazine had a very nice article talking about what the directors need to be doing with regard to AI and their management of it. We can provide you a copy if you would like. Will this invention change the course of large language models? I think it could have a bit of a deflection. So what these guys have done is they figured out how to run a fairly decent large language model, 120 billion parameters, on a desktop computer with a medium grade GPU. What that means is that a lot of problems which used to require a bunch of data center resources and paying by the minute might be solvable locally by a server sitting inside your computer room. Pretty interesting stuff. I think there's a while before this gets sorted out, but definitely interesting. Wyoming is the first state to issue stable coins. Their stable coin is called Frontier, and it's backed by cash and liquid securities like treasuries. But unlike your bank, you're not protected from losses. Unlike your credit card, you're not protected from fraud. You are subject to ridiculous fees. So I definitely think I ought to get me some of this. But seriously, if you want to speculate, and remember, this is not something you can speculate in, right? Because this is pegged to the dollar. So if you buy a stable coin today, it'll still be worth $1 tomorrow. And in the news bites, why are the solar panels on your roof a national security problem? Well, the controllers are made in China. They talk back to China, and we've already demonstrated that apparently we can take down the grid by loading malware into these controllers and pushing that uh, data back into the grid. So interesting, and I don't know what they're going to do about it because a goodly chunk, most of the solar panel controllers are made in China. China is developing pregnancy robots that will carry a child to term. Not exactly sure the details of how that works. Interesting concept. Um, but it could be very useful for folks who are having trouble conceiving. The cost of a pregnancy robot is estimated, not the robot, but the services of one is dramatically less than a surrogate. So, interesting. We'll see where that goes. Companies are going back to in-person interviews, and the reason for that is it cuts down on this AI fraud. Um, it used to be like last year, a long time ago, 6% of the companies surveyed were doing in-person interviews. Now it's 30%. And I think it is a pretty effective way to deal with AI fraud. But it just means going back to old school methodology. Uh, Device searches, searching your phone, your laptop at the U.S. border hit a record high this year, just like it did last year. It's still a relatively small number of the total people, but it is going up and it will continue to go up. And next, hackers are abusing vibe coding. That's the technique where you can talk to a program and it will actually write the code. Not surprisingly, it writes pretty decent code. And if hackers can reduce the level of effort required to hack, well, it probably seems like a good idea to them. So that's what we have for this week. If you need assistance with any of these things, please let us know. If you're concerned about chatbots and them stealing your stuff and loading malware onto your computer, it's a valid concern. Please reach out to us. And until next time, thanks for listening.